On the planet, there are creatures that do not respond to the passage of time. As life on Earth mutated, disappeared, or reinvented itself, crocodiles remained. They achieved such an effective form from the beginning that they didn't need to change. They emerged more than 200 million years ago, long before the continents had the shape we know today. Back then, the planet was a very different world, dominated by dinosaurs and seas that covered much of the surface. He didn't descend from those giants, he lived alongside them, and when everything around him became extinct, the crocodile remained. He remained hidden beneath the surface, perfecting the same method that has sustained him for millions of years, waiting. It still lurks today. It hunts with the same weapons it used in the Jurassic, a design so precise that evolution has had no reason to change it. The range it occupies is as vast as it is varied. It is present in Africa, Asia, the Americas, and Oceania. In the Nile rivers and the deltas of Southeast Asia, it attacks with precision, taking advantage of every opportunity that presents itself. Some, like the saltwater crocodile, can devour an adult bull or travel hundreds of kilometers across open ocean. Others, like the Ganges gharial, have a long, narrow snout adapted to quickly capturing fish. But despite these anatomical differences, they all retain the essentials: the silent weight, the precise blow, the devastating force. All species share the basics: skin armored with bony plates, a tail that launches attacks in tenths of a second, and a bite whose power is unrivaled in the animal kingdom. Of all of them, the most feared is the one that inhabits the great African rivers. Wielding brutal strength, absolute stealth, and unwavering patience, the Nile crocodile has perfected its lethal technique, approaching unseen, waiting unheard, attacking unstoppable. He doesn't need to run. He doesn't need warnings. Only one thing moves him: the perfect opportunity, and when it arrives, there's no turning back. The heat freezes the air. Over the still waters of the great rivers and canals of sub-Saharan Africa, the surface is barely broken by the passing of insects. A young buffalo advances. The group, further back, rests among the acacias, attentive but motionless. He advances alone, just a few steps. His tongue is dry, and each step seems heavy. Thirst drives him toward the water without stopping. The mud gives way under his weight, but he doesn't retreat. He cautiously lowers his neck, observes, sniffs, listens. He doesn't perceive a threat. He doesn't see the back submerged underwater. He doesn't distinguish the flat eyes that watch him, motionless, less than 5 meters away. He lowers his nose and drinks. He does it quickly. Each swallow is soothing, but he looks up between sips. The surface remains just as calm. There's no sign of danger, no ripples, no smell. A dark shape moves below. It doesn't rush. It slides slowly like a branch carried by a current, generating no movement other than a slight pulse. The buffalo doesn't notice it. The attack is immediate. From the bottom, a dark mass bursts toward the surface with brutal acceleration. The water rises in a compact column, carrying mud and roots. The beast's jaw closes on one of the buffalo's limbs and squeezes it with all its strength. She doesn't bite him to hold him. She immobilizes him. The buffalo reacts instantly. It kicks, tries to turn, digs its feet into the mud for purchase, but can't free itself. The crocodile retreats with constant force, dragging it toward deeper water. The buffalo falls onto its side. One hoof tries to gain purchase once more, but slips. The entire body is dragged into the water, and the last thing you see is splashing on the surface before it disappears completely. In the distance, the group of buffalo watches the scene in silence. They keep their distance, alert, ready to react to any threat. They know from experience that these waters hide dangers they cannot ignore. The victim who drank it didn't die of thirst, but of ignorance. At that moment, survival depends as much on caution as on necessity. After a few minutes, the water calms down again, and the surface regains its stillness, as if nothing had happened. What was once a living, strong body now hangs inert in the crocodile's jaws, a silent trophy that needs no display. It's not an isolated scene in this stretch of sub-Saharan Africa. It's just one among many. Because the crocodile's strategy isn't based on chance. It activates precisely during the most predictable days of the year. The rainy season has receded, leaving behind a cracked landscape. On the plains of the Serengeti, herds of wildebeest, zebra, and buffalo have set off. They have crossed hundreds of kilometers in search of fresher pastures. Gone are the lush green meadows. Now the rivers narrow and disappear, the ponds dry up under the sun, and the once abundant grass becomes sparse and tough. Herbivores know delay can mean death. The route inevitably forces them to cross the great rivers, Mara, Grumeti, sections of the Nile and its tributaries. There are no shortcuts. Water is a border and a passage. In this narrowing of the world where thousands of herbivores are forced to cross, the Nile crocodile takes advantage of its strategic position. Using a predatory technique perfected over millions of years, these reptiles execute lethal ambushes capable of bringing down even adult buffalo during migration. For days, nothing changes on the surface. The current continues its course. The reeds sway in the slightest breeze. The banks retain their shape. But below, however, every meter has its own owner. The predators take up positions with clinical calm. Some lie beneath the entrance ramps, where the first bodies will break the water. Others cradle themselves in the slow-moving pools, ready to catch whoever is swept away by desperation. Still others position themselves at the exits, where already tired prey seek footing. Nothing they do is random. They know the exact depth, the hidden sandbanks, the rocks that force them to change course. There is not one strategy. There are several, simultaneous, overlapping. The first herd hesitates on the mud ledge. There's pushing, fear, pressure from behind. A wildebeest leaps and the river foams up. Behind it, the avalanche. Bodies tumble sideways. Legs lose their grip. Heads emerge and disappear in a second. Below, the jaws. The first contact is always a stone impact. Conical teeth that don't cut. They anchor. One jaw secures a hind leg, another, half a meter away, bites into the neck. Then they pull in opposite directions. If the animal is large, they don't tear it apart yet. They pull it under. The water closes over the prey, and the crocodile's weight immobilizes it. A second crocodile grabs the other limb. The body twists against itself. The joint gives way, and the skin tears open. The blood is dispersed in the stream. Where the red spot advances, more crocodiles approach. They don't cooperate, but the combined pressure resembles an organized ambush. Several pounce on the same individual. One bites the throat, another the groin, another the back to turn. The death twist is not a spectacle. It is a twisting motion to tear off a transportable piece and reduce an entire body into fragments that can be swallowed effortlessly. What was once a narrow, quiet channel becomes a whirlpool of eddies, suspended mud, and bubbles bursting at the surface. When the crocodile's jaws close on living flesh, they crush mercilessly, tearing skin and breaking bones. The pain is immediate and intense, and the wildebeest responds with a deep, piercing cry that pierces the air and echoes cruelly. In the turbulent waters, crocodiles move among the bodies, barely visible. They dive, move forward, and resurface with only the top of their heads above water. Barely an eye or a portion of their back betrays their presence. Violence happens everywhere, and at the same time, a single victim can be attacked by multiple predators from all angles, with no way to escape. If she doesn't die immediately, her own herd pushes her, steps on her and pulls her under, leaving her trapped in the current and at the mercy of the jaws. But for the crocodile, this feast also involves unexpected dangers. In the blind collision of dozens of bodies, a buffalo hoof can strike a ribcage and break it. A zebra hoof can split a juvenile jaw. A stray horn can pierce the soft underbelly between dermal shields. The aquatic stampede makes no distinction. On the incoming bank, the mass pushes so hard that some crocodiles are trapped beneath the avalanche of legs, embedded in the mud, unable to come up for air, drowning in the very avalanche they were seeking to take advantage of. It's not common, but it happens every season. Plenty can also kill. There are episodes so extreme that the density exceeds all measures. When the hollow chosen by the herds narrows due to recent banks or fallen logs, the crossing becomes a funnel. At these points, the reptiles change their behavior. They stop waiting one by one and form an oblique line to the current, like a living barrier that blocks trajectories. There's no agreed-upon coordination. It's a response to the flow. In that diagonal, each bite stops an animal, and that break multiplies the opportunities upstream. The effect is immediate. More bodies arrested, more crashes, more parts available. Legs get tangled, bellies are exposed, necks are offered without anyone's decision. Even outside the immediate waters of the crossing, the predator has options. Downstream, crocodiles intercept the injured that the current separates from the group, a hip bitten open, a dangling tendon, a torn flank. These stragglers are left defenseless with no chance of escape. At the opposite exit, others wait hidden under a layer of liquid mud. They attack just when their prey thinks it has crossed. But the threat doesn't end there. On the high banks, where the sandbar juts out, some crocodiles rise halfway up to surprise those who retreat, trapped by fear and vulnerable to a land ambush. There's no safe place until their entire body no longer touches the water. This effectiveness is not the result of chance or recent learning. It has been developed through constant trial and error over millions of years in these same waters where entire generations faced identical challenges. Evolution shaped not only their jaws and tail, but also their senses and behaviors, fine-tuned to detect every vibration and movement in an environment where the margin for error is minimal. Crocodiles use every part of their anatomy to sustain their assault. Their palatine valves seal their throats as they bite underwater. Sensory organs in their jaw skin detect vibrations and impact several meters away, directing them toward the point with the highest density of targets. Their tails act as propellers and brakes in the same motion, allowing for a lateral strike that destabilizes prey already bitten by another. But not all prey falls on the first attempt. Some animals, especially large ones, offer enough resistance to make the hunt protracted and a collective effort, albeit without conscious coordination. For an adult buffalo, a single crocodile is an obstacle, not a curse. When the prey offers sufficient resistance, the hunt ceases to be an individual effort and becomes a collective struggle, albeit one without conscious coordination. 3, 4, even 5 crocodiles cling to different limbs, pulling in slightly different directions to immobilize him, and the pressure exerted from various points finally defeats him when an internal crunch reveals the fracture. Following the wildebeest and buffalo, other herds also face the same crossing. Among them are the zebras, which advance following the trail opened by the previous groups. Their arrival does not reduce the danger. The river is already full of corpses, disturbed mud, and predators waiting beneath the surface. Their instinct compels them to stick together, unlike wildebeests, which tend to disperse in the water. But that same cohesion, which gives them security on land, becomes a total disadvantage in the middle of the crossing. The tightly packed mass of bodies impedes their maneuvering. When one slows down or sinks, the others are unable to avoid it, and the collective momentum pulls them toward the center of the current, right where the depth and attacks are most lethal. Each stumble sweeps several individuals away, and the space is reduced to desperate shoving. It is at this moment that fear spreads like a wave, multiplying the disorder and the number of casualties. In the midst of this frenzy, when tension reaches its peak, moments of absolute chaos arise. A section of the intersection is filled with dead bodies floating belly up. Others, alive, climb over these corpses to gain traction toward the exit. The accumulation of corpses creates a floating mass that barely holds up. Each step sinks into the soft, slippery surface, saturated with swollen torsos and limbs locked together. Crocodiles bite blindly. Sometimes they grab another by the side and release it with a brief headbutt. Violence recognizes no allies. The marks left behind, which often translate into torn flaps, snapped tails, and fractured scutes, will be dry scars by the end of the season. As the days of crossings continue, the river's scent changes. Putrefaction takes hold with its heavy, sweet chemistry. Swollen remains accumulate in pools, trapped by branches or rocks, and stain the surface with oils. For crocodiles, it's part of the cycle. Many feed on these carcasses. The subcutaneous fat of a floating zebra nourishes as effectively as a fresh cut. Its acidic stomach processes bones and ligaments as efficiently as the flesh of its victims. Others, however, move to secondary branches, upstream or downstream, seeking cleaner currents where hunting is less interfered with by accumulated mortality. There is no single rule. There are options, and each individual conserves energy by taking the closest one. But the risk of staying in saturated waters isn't just the smell. The accumulation of rotting bodies turns certain sections of the river into attraction points for scavenger birds like marabous and vultures, which repeatedly perch in the same spots. The activity of these birds on the surface reveals precisely where the remains are concentrated. Their constant presence disturbs the calm, agitates the environment, and alerts other species, interfering with hunting. For crocodiles, these havens are no longer useful. In turn, decomposition consumes oxygen, stagnant water loses air, and fish gasp at the surface, exhausted. Hypoxia progresses relentlessly. These large predators tolerate the lack of oxygen better than their prey, but even for them, tearing through so much dead flesh is inefficient. Without further ado, they decide to leave. They do so not out of satiety, but out of calculation. They bury themselves in warm benches, where the mud retains heat and their bodies conserve movement. They digest at rest, with their mouths half open, a simple but effective strategy for dissipating heat. They have no sweat glands or active cooling mechanisms, so they open their mouths like a thermal valve, allowing air to circulate and the body to regulate itself through passive evaporation. But that respite doesn't last long. The flow of the herd continues for days, and with it come new opportunities. Each group that reaches the coast brings with it different prey, changing densities and variable behaviors. What follows is not a repetition, it's a sequence of adjustments. The ambush is never executed exactly the same because each species imposes its own rules. Tactics are tailored to the type of prey. Zebras, which sink less than wildebeests and kick accurately backward, deliver bites aimed at the base of the neck or chest, aiming to collapse their victim's lungs before exposing themselves to a violent shock. Wildebeest, on the other hand, become disordered and pile up. A bite on the hind legs is enough for the mass to drag them along, and the reptile's tail completes the turn. With buffalo, the stakes are higher. If the bite doesn't land firmly, the animal escapes with the predator hanging off its side, knocking it against logs and rocks. Faced with this, the crocodile does not insist. It lets go and looks for another target rather than break its jaw in a useless display. Not all success goes to the first to bite. Some crocodiles, old and experienced, don't even enter the initial fray. They stay a few meters away, motionless, and advance only when the foam has turned pink. They simply pick up what the tide of violence leaves behind: loose limbs, open stomachs, severed heads. They don't waste energy fighting over a whole prey item. They eat whatever fits whole, whatever their muscles can swallow effortlessly. Old age in these rivers, more than fragility, is calculation. And when even they withdraw, it is a sign that the migration season has come to an end. Every season ends as it begins, in silence. When the last herds cross and the dust settles again on the banks, the river is littered with scars. White bones in the meanders, dark stains where fat stuck to the sand, reeds bent by the passage, and a putrid smell that the wind takes a long time to extinguish. Crocodiles float like sunken wood, their eyes barely above the surface, far from the main trail. Some remain with the remains and eat for days, others disappear into unseen canals with the weight of a season in their bellies. This annual excess is not luxury. It is the difference between hunger that weakens and reserve that sustains. For the Nile crocodile, migration isn't a spectacle. It's its survival architecture. Weeks of emptiness are balanced by days of fierce abundance. And in this context, violence is not an added attribute. It is the inevitable form that the urge to feed takes when the world is reduced to a single intersection. In this narrowing, the reptile demonstrates why it has survived. He doesn't master everything. He doesn't need to. He selects, attacks, yields, waits, and returns. And as the continent repeats the alternation between dry and rainy seasons, of grass dying and being reborn, he paces his hunger to that ancient rhythm. When movement returns and the ground shakes again in the distance, there is no need to know the day. The river will return to its course, and he patiently will have secured his place, always present and difficult to escape. In the world of the Nile crocodile, there is no aesthetic delicacy. There is no beauty in its figure, but there is a brutal coherence. An adult crocodile can grow to nearly 5 meters long and weigh almost half a ton. Its body is armored with scales as thick as stone plates. The thick, hardened skin hides dense musculature, especially concentrated in the jaws. This is where its greatest weapon resides. A bite capable of exerting more than 1,600 kilograms of pressure per square centimeter, surpassing the strength of any other land predator. They don't tear flesh, they crush it. They break bones, sever tendons, and immobilize. Their mouths aren't built for precision, but for dominance. Even a single snap of their jaws can effortlessly shatter the shell of an adult turtle. But if the jaws are its anchor, the tail is its catapult. This appendage accounts for almost half of its weight and is made up of robust vertebrae covered by powerful caudal muscles. Not only does it allow you to propel yourself underwater, it also functions as a rudder and stabilizer, correcting your course and maintaining balance under full acceleration. At the same time, it accumulates fat reserves that allow it to survive for weeks without eating. Each contraction of these caudal muscles is so powerful that it propels the animal forward with a speed sufficient to close the distance with its prey in a single impulse. Their attack isn't a chase, but a charge. An entire body launches from the shadows with the violence of energy accumulated over hours of waiting. This ability is no coincidence. Its history dates back more than 200 million years, a lineage that has survived mass extinctions, drastic climate changes, and ecological collapses with little change in its original form. As impressive as it sounds, this specimen is, in essence, the same one that inhabited the deltas of the Cretaceous period. But they did not live permanently in rivers because their ancestors walked on solid ground with upright legs and sharp claws. But something changed in the world. Water began to offer opportunities that land no longer provided: distracted prey, more stable environments, less direct competition. Slowly, generation after generation, it moved toward the margins, the estuaries, and the muddy shores. It never turned back. It abandoned land speed to rely on watercraft. The crocodile chose water not for comfort, but as part of his strategy. And its body followed suit on this evolutionary path. Its eyes and nostrils moved higher on the skull, allowing it to peer down at the surface while the rest of its body remained submerged. But those eyes aren't just observation tools. They're weapons. The retina, rich in rods, captures even the smallest particle of light, and its sensitivity is amplified by the tapetum, lucidum, a reflective layer that covers the fundus. That membrane not only allows you to see in the dark, it transforms it. Any flash, any movement in the darkness is multiplied in intensity, giving the crocodile a precise and brilliant image of the night world. When the sun sets and the savanna is plunged into shadow, her slit pupils dilate with millimetric precision, opening like black floodgates to let in as much light as possible. For hours, their vision remains calibrated to the deepest darkness, adjusting to every slightest change in the environment, and at dawn they contract with the same efficiency, protecting the eye without losing definition. Together, these adaptations don't just give you vision, they give you an advantage. Surgical precision when stalking, effortless command of the environment. In his eyes, there is calculation, patience, and restrained violence. Because he doesn't observe, he measures. He doesn't follow, he anticipates. In the murky, ever-changing world of African rivers, his gaze is the only thing that remains unperturbed. And it is there, in that all-seeing silence, where the true danger of this reptile is born. But his body doesn't rely on just one resource. Nothing in it has been left to chance. His back is not just covered by skin, it is protected by living armor. A row of dark, rough plates extends from the nape of the neck to the tip of the tail. These aren't ordinary scales, they're osteoderms, bony structures embedded in the dermis, as old as the animal's lineage itself. Millions of years ago, they offered a vital defense against the teeth of their competitors. Today, although few dare to confront it, they continue to fulfill a similar function. Each of these calcified blocks is supplied by blood vessels, and that changes everything. They don't just protect them, they also regulate their body temperature. When the sun beats down on the savanna, the osteoderms absorb the heat and distribute it through the blood. And when it disappears behind the clouds, they release the excess heat to prevent overheating. The Nile crocodile carries more than just armor on its back. It carries an active, ancient, and effective thermal system. as if evolution, in forging its defense, had also designed its internal regulator. And from that armored back extends its most versatile tool, its tail. It's long, heavy, and flexible. Adults can grow to over 2 meters in length, or half the length of their entire body. In the water, it is practically its engine. It curves, tenses, and unfolds like a spring, propelling the animal with a force that does not seem to come from such a massive body. On land, it's their whip. A flick of that tail can bring down an antelope or scare away a lion. The crocodile's body is built to endure, but its adaptations don't end with its skin, teeth, or tail. They also extend to the way its young are born. Water shapes almost every aspect of their lives, but not all. When it comes time to bring babies into the world, they choose dry land. There, under the heat of the sun, a story begins that is not written in water, but in the sand. It's an evolutionary decision as ancient as it is persistent, and it's striking, because even in this animal, whose life seems entirely dependent on the aquatic environment, the future of its species is still being formed in a completely terrestrial world. There, far from rivers, ambushes, and submerged bodies, the lineage begins. Beneath the sand in a chamber, the mother digs with her hind legs. The eggs are laid, dozens, never just one. The risks are numerous, and number is the only possible defense, a typical strategy among reptiles. During the first few days, the mother stays close, not on the nest, but in its immediate vicinity. Some females hide in the nearby water, where they can go unnoticed while keeping watch. At other times, it partially buries itself on the shore and waits. No one sees it, but it always remains there. Incubation can last around 3 months, during which time the eggs are vulnerable to multiple threats: monitor lizards, wild boars, jackals, and opportunistic birds. Because of all these factors, the female chooses a high, sunny spot with good cover. That's why when something gets close, it attacks. It's not common to see a crocodile out of the water moving quickly, but a mother protecting her eggs is a fierce exception. The most extraordinary thing about the process is that it's not the mother who initiates birth. It's the babies who announce it. From inside the eggs, they emit short, vibrant squeaks that penetrate the sand. That's the signal. The mother approaches the nest, gently digs, and removes the eggs one by one with her mandible. Some are already open, others are not. She holds them and carries them with her. In that single day, more than 40 babies can be carried in its mouth. There's no mistake. There's no doubt. Although many of these little ones barely measure 20 centimeters, they are all recognized and cared for. This care, repeated in rivers, lagoons, and estuaries throughout Africa, takes concrete form in a stretch of the Nile. On the eastern bank of the river, near dusk, a female gathers her 43 young. Not all have emerged from their shells. Some are still trying to break out from within. She waits without forcing them. Then he begins walking toward the water, descending a small slope. He stops briefly, watches, corrects his course, and continues. Upon reaching the water, he gently releases the newborns. They enter the backwater and the movement begins. The young swim but do not move away. They move in small circles, close to the body that brought them there, almost as if following an invisible pattern. She remains in place. For weeks, he patrols the area and responds violently if anything approaches. He does this because it's his territory, and because they are his offspring. And although the water is full of dangers, such as voracious fish, birds of prey, and even other adult crocodiles, their presence reduces losses. This level of care is unusual among reptiles. In many other species, such as snakes, independence is immediate. The young are born alone, unprotected, without contact with their parents or other members of their species except during periods of heat. But even here, in one of the rare cases where there is initial protection, everything has a limit. After the first few weeks, vigilance decreases. The baby crocodiles disperse and the bond weakens. There is no longer constant protection. There is no longer room for fragility. The pond breathes under a sun that burns like embers. The water, cloudy like liquid mud, hides everything that moves beneath its surface. The buzzing of insects fills the silence, but there is another sound, fainter, almost imperceptible, a rustling of dry leaves among the bushes. A flash of amber eyes shines in the shadows, motionless, watching without anyone noticing. At the edge of the pond, a baby Nile crocodile barely a meter long lurks. The scaly skin, still soft compared to that of an adult, reflects light in green and grey patches. The movements are clumsy but instinctive. He hasn't learned to hunt, he inherits it. The small but sharp eyes barely rise above the water, fixed on a juvenile impala approaching to drink. It sniffs the air, advancing with its hooves, sinking into the soft mud. From the bushes, the hidden gaze never leaves. It's a leopard, breathing slowly, crouching in the shadows. It doesn't move. It just waits. The crocodile doesn't notice it. It's blind to everything but its prey. The water is still, but beneath the surface, the young crocodile glides inch by inch. Their jaws, small but already armed with sharp teeth, wait. The impala lowers its head, its lips brushing the water. A fatal mistake. The crocodile emerges from the pool amidst foam and mud. Its jaws close on the impala's flank, tearing flesh with a wet crunch. The impala bellows, its hind legs kicking in vain. For a moment the crocodile emerges, with the inert body of its prey between its teeth. The leopard, who has watched every movement, every splash, leaves the shadows. His muscles flex, silent. The smell of fresh blood, the chaos of the attack, have drawn him like a magnet. The feline jumps. Before the crocodile can react, the leopard's claws sink into its body, piercing deep into its scales. The reptile's blood mixes with the impala's, forming a viscous puddle in the mud. He writhes, trying to get away as best he can, his jaws snapping in the air, but the leopard is relentless in its actions. Its fangs seek out the weak spot, tearing through skin and muscle. The young predator, who moments before was the hunter, is now prey. His struggle is brief and desperate. A final spasm shakes his body before he falls still. The leopard, its snout stained red, tears at the young reptile's flesh. Its fangs pierce the tender scales, tearing at its victim's muscles. The pond, still churning with the blood of both dams, now smells of fresh death. For the feline, this reptile is not just prey. It is a treasure of fat and protein, a scarce resource that justifies the risk of its claws against the scales. In a world where every bite counts, the crocodile's size and vulnerability make it an opportunity impossible to ignore. The fame of the adult crocodile, a king of the rivers feared for its strength, is not able to protect all its young. In the brutality of wild Africa, young people must evade death with pure instinct, an instinct that is not always enough without the experience that only time can provide. But the struggle doesn't end in their youth. Throughout their lives, crocodiles face persistent threats, fierce competitors like hippos and lions, droughts that dry up rivers, diseases lurking in stagnant water, and the increasing human presence that alters their world. Each stage brings new dangers, each day is a test. As the specimens grow and reach maturity, the world around them remains unforgiving. Their perfect anatomy and reputation as supreme predators do not make them invulnerable. Quite the contrary, each day is marked by the need to avoid threats that can end your life in seconds. Because in Africa, the rule that governs them all is simple: no animal rules all. Even the Nile crocodile, with its colossal strength and bone-crushing bite, is sometimes forced to respect its neighbors. One of them is the hippopotamus. This herbivore, much heavier than any adult crocodile, is an adversary it rarely faces, and the crocodile senses very well that a single mistake can cost it its life. Hippos don't need provocation to attack. They defend their territory with excessive aggression, and when they charge, they do so with a body that easily exceeds 3 tons. Its mouth is a weapon capable of crushing skulls in seconds. A single bite from its jaws or a crushing by its paws is enough to shatter even the most robust reptile. For this reason, crocodiles often avoid areas where hippos rest or raise their young, staying at a distance, hidden underwater. But he's not the only one they fear. In this shared ecosystem, other titans also impose their rules. The elephant is another giant that commands respect. Its monumental size and brute strength make any confrontation a sure doom for the crocodile. Even so, they rarely coincide enough for direct conflict to arise. The river stalker prefers to give ground rather than risk a confrontation that could cost him his life. But it's not just the animals that threaten it. The environment itself is a constant challenge. Africa's relentless heat is as lethal as the fiercest predators. Its skin, covered in osteoderms, does not fully protect it from the scorching sun. If it remains exposed for too long, dehydration and overheating can kill it. For this reason, he spends most of the day submerged, with only his eyes and nostrils showing while avoiding direct radiation. Water, besides being their hunting ground, is their refuge from a climate that can become their worst enemy. Hunger is another constant threat. Although it may seem that the crocodile, with its enormous size, needs to feed every day, the reality is very different. These reptiles are designed to endure long periods without food. An adult crocodile can go weeks, even months, without eating, something unthinkable for a land predator of its size. The key lies in their physiology. Unlike mammals, crocodiles are cold-blooded, meaning they don't need to expend energy to maintain a constant body temperature. Their metabolism is extremely efficient, capable of conserving energy for long periods. Moreover, when it does eat, it does so in colossal quantities. A large prey can keep it satiated for weeks. This combination of a slow metabolism and the ability to store fat reserves allows it to survive in an environment where food is not always guaranteed. However, this ability to fast comes at a price. During prolonged periods without food, the crocodile reduces its activity to a minimum. It becomes slower, more vulnerable. If in this weakened state he encounters an opponent, his chances of survival are drastically reduced. Therefore, every successful hunt is vital. It represents not only an opportunity to feed, but also to maintain the strength necessary to dominate their environment. Despite all these threats, the Nile crocodile remains one of Africa's most abundant predators. Its survival is due to a series of strategies that it has perfected over millions of years. Patience is his greatest weapon. He can spend hours, even days, motionless underwater, waiting for the exact moment to strike. Its body is designed for stalking. Its nostrils and eyes are located on the top of its head, allowing it to remain almost completely submerged without being detected. When prey approaches, the crocodile doesn't hesitate. It attacks with explosive speed, closing its jaws with devastating force that never leaves any room for escape. This strategy, combined with his opportunism, has allowed him to adapt to any circumstance. If the river dries up, it buries itself in the mud and waits for the rains to return. If prey is scarce, it settles for smaller animals such as birds, fish, or even carrion. Its flexible diet is another reason for its success. It doesn't rely on specific prey, giving it an advantage in changing ecosystems. Reproduction also plays a fundamental role in their survival as a species. Each female lays dozens of eggs, knowing that only a fraction will reach adulthood. This high number of offspring compensates for losses caused by predators and ensures that the population remains stable. But perhaps the most important reason for its permanence is its ability to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Unlike other predators that risk their lives in fights over territory or females, the Nile crocodile will give up space if necessary. He prefers to retreat rather than waste unnecessary energy in a battle that could leave him injured. That prudence, that ability to conserve resources and minimize risks, makes him a born survivor. Even when everything seems against him, the crocodile finds a way to prevail. His ambushes, his physical resilience, his ability to wait for the exact moment to strike, everything about him is designed to last. While other predators may be displaced or eliminated by abrupt environmental changes, this reptile endures. Its history is a lesson in adaptability. It has survived ice ages, prolonged droughts, and competition with much larger and more aggressive species. And he has done so not because he is the strongest in every aspect, but because he knows when to act and when to disappear. The result of all this is a creature that remains in balance with its environment. It doesn't dominate all territories, nor does it need to. All he needs to do is know every corner of his world and seize every opportunity that presents itself. This combination of strength, patience, and prudence is what has made him one of the most successful predators in history. An animal that, despite the dangers it faces, continues to reign supreme in Africa's rivers and wetlands, just as it has for millions of years. Across the Atlantic, a different member of the Crocodilidae family has managed to thrive with equal success, adapting to a very particular but equally challenging environment. While one dominates the open, sunny spaces, the next moves through dense jungle, where the heat is oppressive, the humidity constant, and the rivers seem to have no end. The Amazon basin, with its more than 6 million square kilometers of land, is a labyrinth of water and vegetation. Here, in the heart of South America, lives the black caiman, the largest predator in the region. The Amazonian environment is a challenge in itself. Rivers laden with sediment overflow with seasonal rains, covering vast areas and transforming the forest into a mosaic of temporary islands. Visibility is almost zero underwater. Currents are unpredictable. In the dry season, water flows are reduced to isolated pools, and the stifling heat concentrates prey and predators in the same confined spaces. This hostile environment demands extraordinary adaptability from alligators. Unlike their African cousins, they do not hunt in open, visible rivers, but rather in narrow channels and lagoons hidden by vegetation. The black caiman is a formidable creature. Measuring between 4 and 5 meters in length and weighing up to 400 kilograms, it is the largest predator in the Amazon. Its dark color allows it to blend in with the murky water and shadows of the jungle, making it almost invisible to its prey. A solitary and patient hunter, it can remain motionless for hours, with only its eyes and nostrils visible until prey comes too close. At that point, it attacks with a burst of force that leaves no chance of escape. However, its size and reputation don't make it invulnerable. Among its most constant threats is the jaguar, the most powerful feline in the Americas. Unlike their African cousins, black caimans must be alert even on land. These cats, with their skull-piercing bite, are adept at hunting them. Adults are usually too large to be attacked, but younger specimens are a frequent target. Giant anacondas also pose a constant danger, taking advantage of their strength and the advantage of the water to stalk inexperienced alligators in their most vulnerable moments. The fragility of juveniles becomes evident in every movement, in every silent wait. In a narrow arm of the river, a juvenile black caiman, barely 2 meters long, lurks without missing a detail. When a group of capybaras approaches to drink, the opportunity clearly presents itself. Guided by instinct, the reptile launches itself at the laggard. The attack is precise. It sinks its jaws into the prey's neck and begins to drag it toward the water. But the noise has not gone unnoticed. A few meters away, hidden in the undergrowth, a jaguar watches. It isn't interested in the capybaras. Its true target has just revealed itself. The feline approaches stealthily, each step calculated. When the caiman begins to devour its prey, paying no attention to its surroundings, it is at that very moment that the jaguar leaps with lethal precision. Its fangs pierce the reptile's skull with such force that they destroy bone and brain instantly. The young alligator has no chance, and its body merely jerks violently for seconds before falling motionless. The jaguar then sits next to the body, sniffing the air and examining its surroundings, alert to any movement. Slowly but decisively it begins to feed, taking advantage of the moment before another predator can approach. For the jaguar, the risk has been worth it. Caiman meat, rich in protein and fat, is a valuable resource in an environment where competition for food is fierce. The balance in this environment is delicate. Although the black caiman is a formidable predator, it occasionally becomes prey, reminding us that even the most powerful must respect the ancient rules of survival. But life in the Amazon basin never stops. As one species declines, others continue their course, facing the challenges that come with growth. As they mature, the dynamics change and competition intensifies. Droughts can concentrate dozens of caimans in tiny pools, leading to deadly clashes between males. Floods, on the other hand, expand their territory to excessive levels, dispersing prey and forcing predators to travel greater distances in search of food. This constant cycle of abundance and scarcity defines its existence. Its reproduction is another aspect that differentiates it from its African counterpart. The female black caiman lays up to 50 eggs in nests built with mud and vegetation in elevated locations to prevent flooding during rain. The incubation period lasts approximately 90 days, during which the mother remains nearby, guarding the nest for predators such as raccoons, birds of prey, or even other alligators. When the young hatch, they make high-pitched sounds that alert the female. She helps them emerge and gently carries them in her mouth to the water. But the danger doesn't end there. Most newborns don't survive their first year. Large fish, snakes, birds, and opportunistic mammals find them easy prey. Their mother protects them during the first few weeks. But like their African counterparts, the young must gradually learn to fend for themselves. In these cases, the mortality rate is so high that of the dozens of eggs a female lays, only a few will reach adulthood. The black caiman also faces threats from its peers. Adult males are deeply territorial and do not hesitate to kill juveniles to eliminate potential competitors. This behavior, although brutal, regulates population density and ensures that the strongest individuals thrive. In the Amazon rainforest, every opportunity counts and natural selection is merciless. Their diet is broad and opportunistic. From fish and birds to mammals like tapirs and deer, anything they can fit in their mouths and catch is on their menu. This dietary flexibility is one of the keys to its success. When large prey is scarce, it can subsist on smaller animals or even carrion. Its slow metabolism, typical of cold-blooded reptiles, allows it to endure long periods of starvation. He may go weeks without eating, minimizing his activity to conserve energy. When it finally catches a large prey, it devours it whole, storing enough food to survive for another long time. The dark color of its skin is more than camouflage. It allows it to absorb the heat of the sun on cold Amazonian mornings. That stored energy gives it an advantage in an environment where water temperatures can vary dramatically. Its eyes, adapted to the shadows, and its body perfectly designed for stalking, make it an almost invisible predator. Despite the many challenges it faces, the black caiman has thrived in the Amazon. Its combination of strength, patience, and adaptability keeps it at the top of the region's food chain. It has survived drastic climate changes, competition with other species, and constant pressure from predators. Its success lies in its ability to take advantage of every advantage its environment offers. While other animals succumb to the unpredictability of the jungle, the black caiman remains. In the rushing rivers and silent swamps, it continues to reign as effectively as its prehistoric ancestors. The trajectory of the black caiman in South American waters is a reminder. Brute strength alone does not guarantee survival. It is the ability to adapt that ensures dominance in a world that never stops changing. From the dark, tangled rivers of the Amazon, where the black caiman reigns among slow-moving waters covered in dense vegetation, the diversity of crocodilia unfolds in forms that respond to each territory. Thousands of miles away in South Asia, specialization takes a different path. Along the Ganges and Brahmaputra rivers, which flow through India and Nepal, the environment is completely different. In this region, the water is more open, the currents are fast, and the banks are reduced to wide, poorly protected sandbanks. This environment, so different from that occupied by other crocodilia, forced the gharial to specialize in a way that distinguishes it from any other member of its family. It was during the Miocene, more than 10 million years ago, that ancestral gharial populations began to adapt to this river system. Unlike the swampy jungles of the Amazon or African rivers teeming with large mammals, Asian waterways offered a different kind of challenge: small, elusive prey. Large aquatic ungulates were less common, but the waters teemed with swift fish. In this context, the gharial abandoned brute force and specialized in precision. Its long, extremely thin snout evolved as a perfect hydrodynamic tool for slicing through the water with minimal resistance and catching fish before they could react. The gharial's skull is one of the most specialized structures of all crocodilia. Its fine, sharp teeth interlock like a spike trap designed to grip slippery bodies. But this same adaptation also imposes limitations. Unlike the Nile crocodile, its jaw is not built to withstand the struggle of large prey. He couldn't take down a buffalo or a zebra. Their anatomy is designed for a different strategy. Power gives way to agility. Every movement is precise, every attack designed to take advantage of the river's speed and currents. Its body follows the same pattern. Measuring between 4 and 6 meters in length, it's one of the longest crocodiles, but its slender build allows it to move with great maneuverability in fast-moving waters. Their greenish-gray skin blends perfectly into the sandy seabed and the reflection of light in the water. And in adult males, the snout culminates in a bulbous protuberance known as a gara, which amplifies their calls during mating season. This characteristic is unique and serves to attract females in an environment where sound travels easily over open river surfaces. The gharial doesn't behave like aggressive crocodiles that ambush large mammals. It's a piscivorous specialist. Its life is centered on silent stalking and precise hunting. He spends hours motionless until a school of fish comes close enough. Then it executes a lightning-fast lateral movement, sweeping the water with its snout and catching its prey in an instant. It doesn't tear it apart. Its teeth aren't made for tearing. He fits it in his snout and swallows it whole, avoiding wasting energy in prolonged struggles. A school of carp swims unconcerned with the current in one of the branches of the Ganges. The water is clear and moving vigorously, carrying leaves and small branches downstream. Between the sediments and the reflection of the sun, the gharial waits, completely motionless. Their eyes, barely visible above the surface, watch every silver flash of the fish. For minutes it seems like just another branch, carried away by the current. Then, without warning, a swift twist of its snout breaks the stillness. The burst of water is brief but lethal. A fish is caught between its interlocking teeth. In just seconds, the gharial accommodates it and swallows it whole, before the school disperses. This same situation repeats itself over and over again throughout his life. He needs nothing more. His strategy, as specialized as the environment that shaped him, guarantees him sufficient food. This radical specialization makes it the polar opposite of the Nile crocodile. While its African relatives feed on anything that makes the grave mistake of approaching water, the gharial depends almost exclusively on river fish. It is less aggressive towards other species, including humans, and rarely leaves the water. Their bodies, behaviors, and diets are so closely tied to this environment that any drastic change in the ecosystem could put them at risk. The gharial is the clearest demonstration of how crocodilia are not a uniform group. Its features make it unique, a reptile adapted to such a specific niche that it seems alien to the traditional image of the aggressive and violent crocodile. However, this strategy has allowed it to survive for millions of years in an environment that demands precision rather than strength. In the rivers of the Indian subcontinent, the gharial continues to stalk schools of fish, invisible until the last moment, as patient as it is effective. From the open rivers of the Ganges and Brahmaputra, where the gharial learned to cut through currents with precision, the map shifts to an archipelago of warm waters and muddy margins. In the Philippines, shallow waters in Mindanao feature intermittent swamps, narrow meanders, and pools that shrink and expand with the seasons. On this fragmented board, the Philippine crocodile followed a different, shorter, and narrower evolutionary path which distances it from the African giants and places it at the opposite end of the scale. His body tells a different story. Where the Nile crocodile focuses on mass, the Filipino crocodile reduces and refines. Males are around 2.5 meters long, rarely 3, with a wide, compact snout that is not made for holding ungulates, but rather for smaller caliber game: fish, amphibians, crustaceans, snails, shrimp, crabs, and insects. This list, repeated for generations, is no coincidence. The rivers and swamps it occupies offer few large aquatic mammals and an abundance of small, scattered prey. As a result, natural selection responded economically, favoring a predator efficient in short spaces and fine resources, not a knockdown of heavy bodies. The result is a narrow niche carnivore. Its golden brown skin, crisscrossed with dark bars, blends in with the slime and shadow of papyrus. Its quick biting skull captures escaping prey in the blink of an eye. In a world of soft banks and murky waters, excess size is a hindrance. A compact body saves energy, maneuvers better in narrow channels, and requires less food to sustain itself. The recent history of the species, whose population numbers fewer than 200 adults and juveniles in the wild, speaks volumes. Specializations that, in environments full of variables, take a heavy toll when the menu narrows even further. Biology underlines this commitment. As a cold-blooded reptile, it optimizes every calorie. It can space out meals, sustain long periods of rest, and convert small prey into sufficient food. But arithmetic is inflexible. Where an African banquet resolves weeks, here nutrition arrives in smaller doses, one after another, and the room for growth is reduced. Evolution pushes toward moderate sizes because in these swamps, there's no reward for dragging around a costly body. And by that logic, every extra centimeter is an expense the environment can't reimburse. Another problem affecting this species is competition. Fish-eating birds lash out at schools of fish with their spear-like beaks. Predatory fish prowl the edges of ponds, sharing the same waterways. That's why in this environment the Philippine crocodile doesn't command respect by mass or by unbridled violence. It defends what it can within the perimeter it knows and hunts as often as its habitat allows. Its advantage is not in impact, but in repetition. Stalk, advance a foot, stop, adjust the angle of the muzzle, and close at the exact second again and again without waste. The steadfastness and precision that characterize the Philippine crocodile are not merely static traits, but are revealed in every daily action, in the way it moves and hunts within its environment. In a backwater in Mindanao, a school of small cyprinids churns the surface of the water. Among submerged roots, the crocodile aligns itself with the current close to the bottom. Its broad, low snout doesn't cut through the water. It merely pushes it forward to form a pressure front that traps its prey against the bank. A short, almost wakeless whiplash, and the teeth hold a fish and a shrimp in the same bite. There's no turning, no noisy drag. Just a nod to orient the catch and a clean gulp that leaves the water exactly as it was. Minutes later, he repeats the sequence, scoring small victories where others would seek a single attack. This way of life determines their future. A menu of small items sustains the individual, but rarely significantly multiplies the population. The young, born on low beaches and mudflats, share the scene from the start with birds, larger fish, and other reptiles. The female provides protection for a time, but statistics rule. Of a large clutch, few survive the first stage. Adult life offers stability, not expansion, and in a strictly freshwater environment with limited corridors between basins, exchanges between populations are scarce. The Philippine crocodile is a lesson in extreme balance, a predator that has achieved peak precision on a small board and whose strength, specialization, also limits its possibilities. While its relatives demolish herbivores and turn a river into red foam, this reptile sustains its biology based on smaller catches and severe metabolic accounting. It's not a mistake of evolution. It's an exact response to an environment that never offered more than its fair share. And in that loyalty to the place, their destiny is played out on another scale, far from the noise, with the patience of someone who knows that every bite counts. From the rivers of the Philippines, where the Philippine crocodile struggles to survive in increasingly fragmented waterways, the scale changes completely when reaching northern Australia. There, in the vast northern territory, the heat is constant, and the line between water and land blurs between mangroves, estuaries, and river mouths. In this tropical environment, where rivers connect directly to the sea, the saltwater crocodile, the largest on the planet, survives. Unlike its Philippine counterpart, which is restricted to inland rivers and has shrunk over time, the saltwater crocodile has followed the opposite path. It has grown. With specimens exceeding 5 meters in length and some exceptional individuals reaching almost 7, and a weight that can exceed a ton, it is an intimidating presence that completely dominates its environment. Its body, covered in thick osteoderms, not only offers protection against non-existent predators, but also allows it to withstand blows and attacks from desperate prey without flinching. This species has taken the adaptability of Crocodilia to the extreme. Its name is no coincidence. It is capable of moving easily between fresh and salt water, colonizing mangroves, marshes, and even open coasts. It has been documented traveling hundreds of kilometers offshore, using ocean currents to move from island to island, something unthinkable for other crocodile species. This mastery of such varied environments has given it access to a much wider range of prey than its relatives, from coastal fish and sea turtles to water buffalo that venture to drink on the shore. Its anatomy is a compendium of strength and precision. Its jaws, capable of exerting over 240 kilograms of pressure, are the ultimate weapons against any large prey. Its long, muscular tail makes up almost half of its body and acts as a propulsion engine, allowing it to launch ambushes from complete calm to explosive speed in a matter of seconds. Even in turbid and brackish waters, their senses are relentless. Night vision, enhanced by the tapetum lucidum, its hearing, sensitive to surface vibrations, and its pressure receptors in its snout, capable of detecting the slightest movement, make it a complete hunter. The aggressiveness of this species is legendary. Unlike other crocodiles, which prefer to avoid contact with larger animals, this predator does not hesitate to attack prey that is larger than it. Its strategy is based on extreme patience. It can remain floating motionless for hours, waiting for the right moment. This combination of silent waiting and physical power ensures resounding success in hunting. In the Australian mangroves, the daily routine starkly reveals this efficiency. The low tide has exposed a muddy beach where a group of wild buffalo wades in to drink. Everything on the surface conveys calm, but a few meters from the water's edge, hidden among twisted roots, an adult male measuring over 5 meters remains motionless. His body blends into the mud and vegetation. He makes no sound, casts no shadow, and doesn't exist until the moment he decides to move. A young buffalo confidently moves a few meters away from the group to reach a deeper pool. Beneath the surface, the crocodile senses an opportunity and begins to advance. Each movement of its tail propels it forward without generating a single visible ripple. When the distance is reduced to a minimum, the calm is shattered in an instant. A mass of muscle and scales bursts from the water with tremendous violence. The jaws close on the buffalo's hind leg, and the snap echoes above the mud and the bellows. The young herbivore thrashes, kicks, tries to break free, but the fight is over from the first second. The crocodile drags its prey into deep water, where it has every advantage. It doesn't need to twist to tear the meat. Its weight and the force of its bite are enough to break bones and submerge the buffalo until resistance gives way. The rest of the group flees in terror, raising clouds of dust and mud fragments, but the predator remains steadfast, motionless underwater, its prey trapped in deadly silence. This behavior epitomizes what distinguishes the saltwater crocodile from any other predator. It doesn't depend on immediate food availability, as it can go weeks without eating thanks to its slow metabolism. It doesn't need large territories to hunt because it can move through rivers, estuaries, and seas with equal ease. And it has no natural enemies. Its size, strength, and opportunistic behavior have made it the undisputed apex of every ecosystem it inhabits. While other species of crocodilia have reduced in size or specialized to the point of vulnerability, the saltwater crocodile has continued to grow, expanding its range. It is confirmation that in the crocodile family, adaptability is as deadly as strength. And here, in the warm, murky waters of northern Australia, that combination has given rise to the most awe-inspiring predator of all. Since ancient times, the crocodilia family has represented one of the greatest achievements of evolution. This group of predators has survived for tens of millions of years with hardly any changes in its form or habits, because it hasn't needed to. Their anatomy borders on perfection, and their patient strategy has allowed them to dominate rivers, swamps, estuaries, and mangroves on all tropical and subtropical continents. Every muscle, every scale, every adaptation of their bodies is designed for stalking and ambushing, making this family relentless hunters capable of dominating any environment. Throughout the world, different crocodile species exhibit variations that respond to the challenges of their local environments. The Nile crocodile embodies the opportunistic hunter, capable of taking down zebras and buffalo during the mass migration season. In Asia, the gharial moved away from this strategy, developing a specialized thin snout that made it an efficient predator of fish in turbulent rivers. In the Philippines, resource scarcity has led the Mindoro crocodile to shrink and rely on smaller prey, a clear example of how evolution can shape fragility. And at the other extreme, the saltwater crocodile is the giant of the group, easily exceeding 5 meters and extending its domain from inland rivers to the open ocean. This diversity reflects a compelling truth. This reptile has learned to persist under any circumstances. It can fast for weeks, give ground when necessary, and remain motionless for hours, waiting for the precise moment to attack. His flexible diet, physical stamina, and calculated prudence ensure him a place at the top of the food chain. Thus, the crocodile remains. It doesn't need to constantly adapt, because it's already the final product of evolutionary perfection. It's a predator that never rushes, never shows weakness, and as it has since prehistoric times, will continue to wait underwater, invisible and relentless, always on the lookout for a new threat.